They led me into the small conference room like I was already guilty. The glass walls hummed with air conditioning. My manager, Mr. Callow, sat stiff as a ruler. 2 lawyers in dark suits held folders. Across from them, the CEO's assistant watched me with a thin smile. I had spent 7 years at Stonebridge Tech. I built systems. I fixed the servers at midnight. I stayed when the office smelled of burnt coffee and stress. I never asked for praise. "Anne," Mr. Callow said slowly, "we have to let you go. Effective immediately." His voice was calm, like reading a list. I blinked. "What? Why?" My hands trembled. The assistant set a printed document on the table. "There are allegations about your performance, and a client dispute." The lawyer slid a second paper across, a non-compete with a clause that would freeze me out of the whole industry for 2 years if I tried to work with any competitor. My throat closed. "You're blacklisting me," I whispered. Mr. Callow looked at the floor. "We have to protect the company." The assistant's thin smile turned colder. I felt a hot ache in my chest, betrayal, shame, fear. The lawyer asked me to sign. I stared at the blank line as if the pen was a noose. I didn't sign. They left me there, trembling, with the papers on the table. The door clicked shut. My future felt stolen. I promised myself then I would not disappear. I walked out with a cardboard box of my things and a badge that no longer opened doors. The hallway felt too bright. People gave polite nods, like they were watching a quiet funeral. I kept my head down. Outside the building, the city smelled of rain and bus exhaust. I sat on a bench and looked at the non-compete clause again. 2 years. No job in the same field. No clients. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark, my friend on the dev team. Saw the news. "I'm so sorry. Call me." I typed back a short thanks and closed the phone. That night I slept badly in my small apartment. I kept thinking about the moment the assistant smiled. It wasn't about work. It was personal. How did they justify this? I replayed every meeting, every code review. Then I remember the client meeting where I'd refused to change data to fit a false report. I had said no. The CEO's son had wanted that change. I had refused. Had that started all this? The next morning, my inbox was full of polite rejections. Recruiters avoided me after seeing the clause. The industry had ears. The blacklist had teeth. I paced my living room, palms sweaty. I would work around it. I would not beg. The fight began in my head, slow and steady. I found a cafe with a crooked neon sign and a steady stream of freelancers. The barista, a young woman with a bright scarf, handed me a coffee and a smile like sun through glass. I pulled out a notebook and wrote, Plan A, rebuild. Plan B, survive. I had some savings, but not enough for silence and waiting. The non-compete kept me from similar companies. It didn't say I couldn't build my own thing. That line warmed me like a seed. I called Mark. He answered on the second ring. "And you okay?" His voice was soft. I told him the truth, every careful word. He didn't gasp or whisper. He said, "We always knew they'd try something. You stood for something." We talked about options. I could freelance in an adjacent space, logistics software, small retailers, tools that weren't direct competitors. But the blacklist made that risky. I needed a way to keep my mind sharp and my name alive without breaking the paper chain that tried to bind me. On the napkin, I sketched a product idea, a simple analytics tool for local delivery companies. It wasn't Stonebridge's thing, but my routing brain lit up. If I could show value in a different market, I could start small and grow. The barista refilled my cup and asked what I was writing. I kept the idea vague, then tucked the napkin into my notebook like a precious token. Outside, the city moved. Inside, anger cooled into quiet planning. I rented a tiny workspace above a laundromat. The room smelled faintly of detergent and sun. Old posters curled at the corners. I painted the stale walls white with thrift store brushes. I named the space EdgeLab on a whim. The non-compete still buzzed like an alarm in my head, so I checked the wording again and again. It forbade me from working in direct competition with Stonebridge, and it forbade using their client list. It did not forbade creating tools for small local companies or launching a product under a different market label. I started coding in the evenings. My laptop hummed, keys like small drum beats. The idea grew into a simple dashboard that helped small couriers find faster routes without complex enterprise installs. It used stripped-down parts of my routing logic, clean and new. I kept every line on my private drive, outside the company's reach. I wrote a mission statement on a sticky note. Help the little ones win. Mark came by once and brought a slow cooker of soup. He stayed late, helping me test an early prototype. He told me stories from inside Stonebridge, whispers and secrets that painted the Blacklist as petty revenge. His loyalty warmed me. We worked like two people building a raft. I thought about the first day in the conference room and felt the sting. But now the sting fed action. EdgeLab was small, but it was mine. At night I taught myself marketing. I read simple guides, watched free videos, and wrote emails to potential users, local courier owners who ran 2 or 3 vans. They sounded hungry for tools that didn't demand enterprise budgets. The first reply came from a woman named Rosa, who ran a flower delivery service. "We get lost all the time," she wrote. "If you can help, I'll pay." I set up a demo in her office, watching Rosa coordinate drivers with a calm I admired. She logged routes into my app and watched the map smooth itself into sensible lines. Her eyes lit up as drivers shaved minutes from deliveries. She hugged me like I was family. Word spread by small-town chatter. Rosa recommended me to a bakery, then a printer, then a small hardware store. I charged little. I built trust. But success came with risk. Someone forwarded a screenshot to a friend who worked at Stonebridge. 2 days later, Mark stopped coming to meetings. He texted me, "You gotta be careful. They're watching." Fear returned like a shadow. I kept working. I pushed updates at midnight, whispering to my code. The Blacklist wanted to smother me, but now it forced me to be clever. I learned to move quietly, like a fox through night grass. Stonebridge's PR team posted a vague warning on LinkedIn about unauthorized offerings that mimic our tools. The post didn't name me, but their followers started whispering. One of Rosa's drivers got a mean message from someone claiming to be Stonebridge's lawyer. He panicked and stopped using my app for 3 days. Business hiccups felt like punches. I didn't panic out loud. Instead, I set up security, legal counsel who specialized in startup IP, an independent audit proving my code's origin, and a paper trail showing development on my personal devices. Every morning I updated logs. Every night I backed up evidence. The Blacklist could point fingers, but if my proof stayed solid, I could outlast their noise. A twist came in an email from an unexpected source, a Stonebridge junior engineer named Nora. She wrote, "I know you. You fixed the server during the freeze last winter." They lied. I read the message twice. She offered inside details, leaks about how the CEO's son pushed petty revenge. Her signature was small and shaky, but the truth felt heavy. Nora said she feared being fired if she helped, but she wanted justice. She asked for a meeting off-site. I felt a rush. Allies within the beast. I realized I wasn't alone. The Blacklist had cracks. Nora met me at a quiet tea shop under a row of sycamore trees. She looked nervous, fingers worrying a paper cup sleeve. "They blacklisted you to hide mistakes," she whispered. She told me about a manipulated client report that I had refused to fake. She confessed she'd seen emails where the CEO's son insisted on false numbers. "You stood for truth," Nora said. "So they closed the door on you." Her story loosened a knot of anger in me. Now I had proof of my motive, but we had to be careful. Nora could lose everything if traced. I recorded notes and took a photo of her hand-signed note with a trembling thumb. We planned a small leak, anonymous tips to journalists and to a few key clients who might care more about truth than politics. Back at EdgeLab, I coded a new feature that logged anonymized usage metrics for clients. If Stonebridge tried to claim my work copied theirs, these logs would show independent origins. I learned to weaponize transparency. I also realized that revenge without integrity was a hollow victory. I wanted to win clean. Nora's courage gave me fuel. The next day, an industry blogger posted a short piece about Stonebridge's quiet problems. The post mentioned no names but used facts Nora shared. The ripple had begun. Stonebridge doubled down. They filed a cease and desist with Rosa's company, citing alleged infringement. Rosa panicked and threatened to stop using my tool. Calls poured in like small storms. I sat on the laundromat roof and watched the sunset, thinking of my parents teaching me to stand up for what's right. I sent Rosa calm messages and offered temporary free service while the legal noise cleared. She refused to risk her bakery for me, but a week later she called back. "People are talking on the street," she said. "They know you helped. I can't stop now." Meanwhile, my tiny user base kept growing. Word of honest help spreads in small towns. I hired 2 part-time contractors under names that kept the project distant from my own branded life to honor the non-compete's shape. EdgeLab used neutral branding and avoided direct comparison to big players. One night, a stranger knocked on my workspace door. He handed me a sheet of paper, a list of Stonebridge clients who had hidden complaints about delayed deliveries and poor support. "Fix them," he said, then walked away. I read the list under lamplight. It was a map of opportunity and caution. Every name could be a client, or a trap. I made a plan. The blacklist had tried to erase me. I would show the world what they lost. I reached out to one client on the list, a small supplier named Greenway Logistics. Their owner, Omar, was blunt and weary. He had been losing shipments and patience. I offered a pilot, 2 vans, 2-week trial. He agreed, suspicious but desperate. The first day, drivers reported smoother routes and fewer missed windows. Omar called me that afternoon. "Maybe you're onto something," he said. His voice had the rough edge of someone who had little time for promises. As Greenway signed up more routes, other clients watched. A whisper became curiosity. Curiosity became requests. Stonebridge started to look reactive, sending glossy emails promising updates. Their PR tried to control the narrative, but customers noticed real difference in real time. Then came a sting. One of Stonebridge's senior VPs publicly accused an anonymous startup of stealing trade secrets during a conference call that leaked online. The call mentioned employees gone rogue. My inbox filled with polite warnings from people who wanted to stay safe. The blacklist reached into emails like a net. I felt the pressure like a tightening band around my chest. I met Mark at a diner, and we wrote a client welcome kit that emphasized security, ethics, and recorded provenance. We called it Trust First. It was a small thing, but it showed clients I would not play dirty. The industry was watching. So was Stonebridge. The first real boardroom attack came when Stonebridge sent a legal representative to Greenway. They demanded immediate termination of my service, or a lawsuit. Omar stood up like a tired man ready to fight. He tore up their letter and threw it in the trash. "We chose results," he said. I felt a fierce gratitude and fear at once. Choosing me meant not just profit, it meant defying a giant. After that bold stand, more small clients went public about improvements. A local paper wrote a short profile on my little startup. The article didn't name me as the founder, but it praised a quiet new tool helping local logistics. People started to ask who was behind it. Stonebridge's tactics changed. Whispers turned to sabotage. My contractors' payment processors were questioned. A hosting provider flagged abnormal activity and briefly suspended our service. I lost an entire night rebuilding servers and calming jittery clients. The blacklist used every lever it had: influence, money, noise. I slept fully for the first time in weeks, only after a client called at dawn to say everything was back online. I realized this fight would be a marathon, but the small wins tasted like fuel. I wasn't alone anymore. A twist arrived in the form of an old mentor, Dr. Hale, whom I hadn't seen since university. She emailed, "I read about your tool. Let's talk." We met in a park where kids kicked a soccer ball. Dr. Hale taught me about market shifts and the power of storytelling. She said, "And people love a comeback. They love truth, but they also love honesty." Her words were a compass. With her advice, I pivoted our message. We began highlighting real stories, drivers who saved hours, families who got packages on time. Human stories beat corporate spin. I hired a freelance writer to craft simple case studies. Each one mentioned dates and facts that proved independent development and client-first care. The more we shared, the more the blacklist looked petty. Then the biggest twist hit. Nora texted that she'd been fired. Her email access vanished. Her ID badge would not open doors. She was afraid, but still wanted to help. She sent a folder of internal memos showing the CEO's son, Bradford, pushing false metrics and chastising employees who resisted. The folder stank of risk. I made copies, encrypted them, and shared a curated selection with an investigative journalist I trusted. This was dangerous. The blacklist could hurt people. But truth had weight. The journalist ran a careful piece, one that didn't sensationalize but showed documents and interviews with anonymous staff. The article questioned Stonebridge's leadership and hinted at retaliation against whistleblowers. Public reaction was cautious at first, then louder. Clients asked Stonebridge for clarification. The CEO's emails grew defensive. Stonebridge fought back with denials and legal threats. Their PR called our early case studies anecdotal and tried to drown our story with a shiny product update. But the update had bugs in the first release. People noticed. The industry began to shift its attention to performance, not promises. I felt the boardroom pressure changing. No longer were they simply pushing a blacklist, they had to defend actions that now looked messy. I kept the team small and steady. I told Nora to lay low. I texted Dr. Hale a photo of the published article. Her reply, careful. But yes, keep going. One evening, my phone rang. An unknown number. A voice said, "Meet me at the Riverwalk at 9. I have something you need." Suspicion rattled me. I told Mark, but went anyway. At the Riverwalk, a man in a hat handed me an envelope and walked off. Inside, a list of large clients unhappy with Stonebridge. The envelope had no name. The blacklist had made enemies. Now those enemies whispered to me. The whisper network grew into a chorus. A major regional carrier, Lakeside Freight, reached out after their pilot with my tool cut delays by 40%. They were ready to sign a big contract. This was the deal that would prove my tool at scale. We prepared demos, security audits, and a staged rollout plan. My team stayed up nights testing failover systems. I felt the familiar hum of high stakes. Stonebridge responded with panic. They offered Lakeside months of free services and personal calls from the CEO. Lakeside listened, but their operations team wasn't fooled. Results mattered. They signed with us on a limited trial first, then expanded after seeing the numbers. The news spread like warm light. Then a twist. A senior Stonebridge exec filed an internal complaint accusing me of hiring away their staff. They pointed to engineers who moved to Allurex, my new company name, and called it theft. The complaint landed on my lawyer's desk like a grenade. We responded with proof of independent hiring processes and signed offers. The legal volley made news, and investors began asking questions. My phone is filled with supportive messages from former colleagues. Some risked their careers by congratulating me publicly. The blacklist had become a public story about fairness. I felt a fierce, steady joy. We were winning. The pressure broke open when Stonebridge executives were subpoenaed in a small employment hearing. Nora was asked to testify anonymously. She gave a trembling but firm statement about the push for false metrics and the culture of intimidation. Her words were simple and true. The hearing drew attention beyond the trade press. Mainstream outlets started covering it. Stonebridge denied wrongdoing, but the board's face had cracked. Their stock dipped. Calls poured into their investor relations office. The CEO tried to reassure shareholders, but the narrative had shifted. A whistleblower's voice had weight now. That night, my team watched the hearing stream in the cramped Edge Lab. We cheered when Nora's testimony landed clean. I felt proud and humbled. I had not wanted to ruin anyone's life. I wanted accountability. The blacklist had tried to erase me, but it had made its own mistakes visible. After the hearing, a major tech investor approached me. "We like your traction," she said. "We can help scale." Suddenly, our small operation had a real chance to breathe. I thought of all the nights I'd sat with a single lamp and a stubborn heart. The comeback felt close, but the blacklist still had one card to play. Stonebridge launched a last-ditch smear campaign, buying sponsored posts that painted me as a rogue operator who endangered client data. Their legal team sent another letter demanding we cease operations. The board wanted a quick win. The campaign landed like cold rain across social feeds. I watched as comments multiplied, some supportive, many doubtful. I did the only thing I knew, transparency and facts. I released a public security audit, third-party verified. I invited Lakeside and other clients to speak publicly about their results. I gave an interview in which I did not rant, but simply explained our methods and safeguards. Honesty felt like armor. Then came a twist. Someone posted an edited clip from an old meeting, making my words look reckless. The clip went viral. My inbox is filled with angry notes. My team panicked. I went silent for a day, then wrote a short, honest video addressing the clip and showing the full meeting footage. That video was raw and real. It blew past the edited clip, regaining trust. Stonebridge's smear sputtered. People saw the effort to manipulate truth and lost faith. The Blacklist had gambled on noise, but transparency beat the static. Investors moved closer. One offered funding contingent on clear milestones. We signed. EdgeLab was no longer just a small lab, it was a company with a future. With funding, we ramped up. We hired good engineers, set up real customer success teams, and built a polished brand around ethics and results. Pulse Flow, our product name, felt right, steady, rhythmic, effective. We launched a targeted campaign showing measurable impacts. Fuel saved, hours cut, customer happiness up. The numbers spoke. Lakeside expanded its contract. Other regional carriers followed. Stonebridge's PR looked ragged. Their CEO faced a shareholder vote. The boardrooms shifted like tectonic plates. The Blacklist's power waned in the face of hard evidence and client loyalty. Then a huge twist. An anonymous leak revealed that several Stonebridge board members had personal ties to the CEO's son. The leak suggested nepotism and conflicts of interest in hiring decisions. The story blew open. Regulators asked questions. The company's internal structure creaked. I felt no glee in watching another fall. I felt relief that the truth mattered. The world rewarded work that helped people. My team celebrated with pizza on the EdgeLab roof. We watched the skyline and let the city lights blur. I thought of Nora, whose courage had started this chain. I texted her a simple, "We did it." She replied with a picture of a coffee cup and a single emoji. Small things suddenly meant a lot. As we grew, old wounds surfaced. I often dreamed of the conference room where they'd blacklisted me. Sometimes anger rose like a hard knot. I wrote, in notebooks in private, words that burned with that old hurt. But I never used them to crush anyone. My revenge was now public service. Better tools, fair pay, safe jobs. One morning a journalist emailed, "Would you consider a profile?" I agreed. The resulting piece told my story with balance. The firing, the non-compete, the small lab, the quiet courage of clients who chose truth. My face appeared on a homepage. Messages flooded my phone from old friends and strangers. Some said, "Thank you." Others, "Good for you." The Blacklist was now a chapter, not the whole book. Then, a final twist from Stonebridge's side, the CEO resigned amid pressure from investors and regulators. The board named an interim chair who wanted repair, not revenge. I was invited to a closed-door meeting to discuss industry standards on non-compete use. I felt a strange mixture of anger and possibility. Standing there, I realized the fight had moved from personal to systemic. I could influence policy now. We were not just competing, we were changing rules. I accepted the meeting invitation with a cautious heart. The room smelled of lemon polish. Stonebridge's interim chair sat across from me, hands folded. He spoke in measured tones about reform and fair play. I watched him, remembering the assistant's thin smile in that first conference room. Could this be real? I asked for 3 things: public apologies for whistleblowers, removal of harsh non-competes, and support for small clients hurt by Stonebridge's past moves. He listened. After long pauses and tight faces, he agreed to review policies and set up a joint industry forum. I felt the weight lift. It was never about breaking people. It had always been about fairness. Outside, news announced new regulations being discussed at the state level limiting aggressive non-competes. My inbox filled with messages from workers, thanking us for opening a door. The Blacklist was losing legality as well as reputational power. I felt humble and fierce. We had turned a personal wound into a public cure. EdgeLab grew steady and careful. We opened regional offices and a proper headquarters in a renovated warehouse. The team expanded, but kept the values we started with: truth, care, and the little moments that built trust. We launched the Phoenix program, a mentorship fund for mid-career professionals, pushed aside. I visited the first cohort and listened to their stories with my whole heart. A twist came when the CEO's son, Bradford, resurfaced trying to start a new company. He reached out to me in a public forum, asking for advice. My first instinct was to block him. Then I thought of my parents' lessons and the Phoenix program. I wrote a short note. Growth is possible. Learn to listen. He did not reply. Instead, a surprising message arrived from Bradford's former manager, who confessed regret and offered to fund a scholarship for our program. Sometimes small acts meant bigger breaks. The Blacklist shadow faded more each day. We kept innovating. PulseFlow 2.0 used predictive analytics to avoid weather delays and route disruptions. We partnered with community colleges for training programs and launched a scholarship in Nora's name. Nora had moved on to a quieter life and occasionally sent notes about watching her garden grow. Her courage remained a quiet star in our story. Business-wise, we beat Stonebridge on features and on heart. Clients liked that we listened. Employees liked that they were respected. Investors liked growth with integrity. The Blacklist had tried to erase me. Instead, we built an industry that disdained such tactics. Then came a twist I hadn't planned. A small user, a mother-run courier service, sent a viral video of our driver hugging a relieved grandmother who finally received a medicine package. The clip spread across social channels, and people wrote to say they felt seen. Our mission multiplied in ways I hadn't imagined. Success felt softer now, wrapped in human faces. One rainy afternoon, I got a letter from the lawyer who had first handed me the non-compete. He wrote one short line. "We regret how things were handled." No long apology, but it was public and formal. I let that letter sit on my desk for a day before deciding what to do. Anger asked for fireworks. Wisdom asked for a quieter answer. I called a press contact and read a short statement about fairness in industry practices and the harm of blacklists. I did not gloat. Instead, I thanked people who had stood with me. The reaction was strong. Comments poured in about workers who had been silenced by similar tactics. Suddenly, my story became a platform for others. A twist arrived when Lakeside's CEO invited me to a conference to speak on building trust in tech. I accepted. Standing at the podium, under bright lights, I told our story plainly. People listened with bated breath. After the talk, dozens approached me with stories and thanks. The Blacklist had shaped me, but it did not define the world I wanted to build. Years passed in a blur of product updates and small celebrations. I watched team members grow into leaders. I watched clients stabilize and expand. I watched our Phoenix program place people into fulfilling roles. The Blacklist was a scar, visible sometimes, but not the center of the picture. Then one night, Mark texted, "Dinner tonight?" Big news. He met me with a grin that said everything. He told me Stonebridge had been acquired by a consortium that promised to reform corporate culture across the industry. It felt like an ending and a beginning. I thought of all the small roads I'd walked since that conference room. We raised a glass that night for everyone who had been pushed aside and chose to build anew. A final twist came in a simple email from Nora. She had adopted a rescue dog and named it Edge. She attached a photo. I laughed and cried at the same time. The Blacklist had tried to break us, but life had bent toward kindness. I kept a small shrine of sorts in a drawer, the napkin with the first sketch, an old mug from the laundromat workspace, and the signed note from Rosa. I took them out sometimes when I doubted myself. They reminded me of the quiet nights and the long days. A twist came when a documentary filmmaker asked to tell my story. I hesitated. My life had always been private. But then I thought of all the people whose lives had improved because of a small tool and brave clients. I agreed. The film focused not on revenge but on rebuilding. It showed Nora watering her garden, Rose hugging drivers, Lakeside unloading on time. The film won a small festival award and brought new attention to ethical tech. The Blacklist's memory flickered in interviews where I spoke about compassion and systems change. People thanked me for turning pain into policy. I felt a quiet satisfaction that matched the early nights of code and soup. One morning, a letter arrived from a worker who had been blacklisted years before. He wrote about losing jobs and hope, but then starting a small business with a friend he'd met at a Phoenix workshop. His letter ended, "You gave me a chance." I held the letter long after I read it. The Blacklist had cost him time and pain, but he found a new road. I wrote him back, inviting him to a mentorship meeting. He came weeks later, shy and with a stack of notebooks. We sat by the window and talked about choices and courage. He left with new hope. The twist was simple: Turning the hurt into help was its own kind of victory. I realized then that the best revenge was a life lived fully. Not to crush, but to create. The blacklist had tried to stop me. Instead, it made me stronger, kinder, and more determined to protect others from the same fate. On the 10th anniversary of that conference room, I returned to the bench where I'd first read the non-compete. The city had changed a little, a new bakery, a mural of bright birds. I sat quietly and thought of the cardboard box I once carried. My phone chimed with a message from Mark. Ready for the next chapter? I smiled. EdgeLab is now a known name. Pulse Flow had grown into a company that valued people. The industry had moved toward fairness. Nora tended her garden. Rosa expanded her routes. Lakeside ran cleaner operations. The CEO's son had faded into the background, his attempts to control replaced by community standards. I felt no desire for vengeance now, only a steady contentment. I had been blacklisted, yes, but I had built a life that refused to be buried. The final twist, the quiet payoff, was simple. They tried to stop me, and I became their biggest competitor, not by cruelty, but by building better. I folded my hands and breathed. The city hummed around me, and I let the sound be enough. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and tap the bell to get notified the moment we drop a new story, and don't forget to like the video to help others find it.